Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Trainer Talk. Unfortunately, Caitlin is sick, so it's just going to be Bethany and I today. But we're going to talk about what happens to you when you stop working out. So let's say you're somebody that's been working out consistently for 6 months or a year, maybe 2, 3, 4 years. What happens when you stop working out? How quickly do you start to see your progress start to go away? That's what we want to cover today, because a lot of people don't understand that when you take just a short amount of time off, you can actually see quite large diminishes in your performance and in your strength, and all that hard work that you put in can go away rather quickly. And we really want to talk about this, especially right now, because we're coming up toward the end of summer, and every single year we have a ton of people that take the summer off. They work really hard, like September all the way through April and May, and then they take off June through August, thinking that they're going to be fine because they worked out 9 months out of the year. But we want to explain to you guys just what happens when you do take that, month off or 3 months off. So one of the first things, even just after 2 weeks of not training, you're going to see a decrease in your strength and power. And you're also going to have an elevated blood pressure just after 2 weeks. After about 4 weeks, you're going to see a decrease in your overall endurance, so your aerobic capacity. You might experience decrease like sleep, so you're not sleeping as well. Increase in your stress levels. Typically, working out is one of the best stress relievers that you're going to experience. So if you stop doing that, you're going to experience maybe a little bit higher stress. And you're going to start to put on more body fat after that, about the 4-week mark. Especially, it depends on your diet, obviously. I mean, if you're quit training and then you completely go off the wall with your diet, you might experience fat gain faster than that. But typically around the 4-week mark. And then at about 3 to 6 weeks, you're going to also experience some cognitive function decline and memory decline. So that can all happen within like the first 6 weeks of stopping training. We'll go beyond that in a minute, but I'll just let Bethany maybe touch on a couple of things that she has too.
Yeah, I think that you can see a difference even just within 1 or 3 days of taking off training. And there's nothing wrong with taking 3 days off. You're gone for the weekend or something, that's completely fine. It's going to actually help to improve your recovery. It gives your muscles and your body and joints and everything a chance to recover during that time. So you wouldn't see anything negative unless maybe there's a mood effect. So you're not getting those endorphins like you usually do from exercise. So you might have more stress. You might be a little bit more sad or something like that, just because you're not in that same routine. You're not feeling so energized and invigorated from your exercise routine. So that's like very minute effects, but obviously as long as you're coming back to it, then you're still gonna do good. And then like week 2, I know for myself, I've noticed when I did cross country and we would run 6 days out of the week, and we did that for months, and I was in such good shape. And then 2 weeks after, I went out for a run after like not doing anything after the season had ended, and it was way harder. Like it was hard to keep up with the paces I was running. I couldn't even run the paces I was running while I was at my peak fitness. So I really wanted to make sure that was in week 2. Some sites will say like, oh, it's 4 weeks, or some say it's 3 weeks, 1 week. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate and say, oh, I went on a vacation for 1 or 2 weeks, and then they come back to fit camp and they're dying in the first Metcon they come back to, because their body got used to not having that intensity. And once your body kind of gets in a rhythm of getting used to having your heart rate up so high, it's good. It's comfortable with it. But then after you give it, 2 weeks of no high heart rate at all, getting back into it is a lot harder. It feels a lot more uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I can second, like with the few days, like you mentioned, with like the mood and stuff. For me, it's not necessarily like I have increased stress or anything after a couple days off, but working out for me, it energizes me. So it's like not working out, I just don't feel as energetic as the days that I do. But like she said, it is good and beneficial to take a few days off, especially if you are really burnt out from training or like really sore. It's perfectly fine to take a few days off, but what she's explaining is like beyond like the week or 2 weeks, you'll start to see those decreases in performance. And for me, like I'm getting ready to go on a vacation, so I'll be away from the gym for roughly 10 days. But we plan on just doing a couple of workouts while we're there. And she mentioned before we started, you can get away with actually cutting your volume down by 1/3 and maintain your fitness. So if you're working out all year long, let's say you're doing 5 days a week and you cut down to 2 days, but you're still training, hard for those 2 days, you can actually maintain your strength and your muscle mass and your fitness until you get back to doing 5 days. So that's a very cool thing that you can do to maintain your fitness. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and I like that you pointed out with the body fat levels increasing, like it will eventually increase because you're not having your muscles activate as much through, resistance training or any type of other exercise. But typically what we see happen is if people stop coming to the gym, their other good habits fall away with it. So people that end up taking a break for a month or longer, they're usually not on their nutrition like they were when they were coming.
Yes.
So they're kind of like, to heck with it because I'm not working out anyway, so what's the point? Well, the point is you're putting on lots of body fat when your body is almost primed to put it on because you're not exercising anymore. So then it's a lot harder when you come back to the gym, you have increased levels of body fat and decreased muscle mass. So that's why it feels so hard for some people that take the summer off or even take like a month off and are just kind of falling completely off the wagon. They come back and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much harder. Versus if they just kept it a little bit, they just kind of maintained where they were. They weren't actively trying to do 5 days a week, crushing it every day in the gym. Being a little less strict on their plan would allow them, the flexibility they wanted while still maintaining their results, so they didn't get behind.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about that enough. Like, you can take a little bit of time off the gym, and as long as you're eating really healthy and you're eating the right amount, and maybe you're getting some form of exercise, like you're walking a lot or riding bike or doing something at home, body weight stuff, you might not gain muscle and strength like you would otherwise, but you can definitely still maintain your results. That way you don't go too far backward before you come back to the gym, maybe in the fall or the winter or something like that.
So that wraps up our short-term effects for taking some time off of the gym. We'll kind of move into like what happens in 2 to 3 months and then what happens in a year off from the gym. So this can happen if you have some sort of an injury and you're not working out at all. That's typically what we see. Or the 2 to 3 month span would be if someone just takes off for the summer. You can see quite a few detrimental effects from not exercising there.
Yeah, so probably around the 2 to 3 mark and beyond, you're going to see a decrease in heart and lung function, and also a decrease in your overall metabolism. So you're going to actually store body fat easier. So especially if you're not staying on track at all with your nutrition, or if you let that kind of slip, you're not only eating worse, but your metabolism is also slower because you're not working out. So it's kind of like a double whammy. Typically when we see people, like she mentioned earlier, when people stop working out, they kind of let their nutrition slide too because they're like, oh, I'm not working out and I don't need to even bother eating healthy. So they're going to end up putting on even more body fat. And having more body fat also will lead to worse heart function and lung function. And then that's going to progress into the really long effects. So after that year, you're going to have that increased risk of pretty much all diseases. So your diabetes, heart disease, everything like that, as well as bone density decrease. So since you're not working out and putting your body through that resistance training, you're not just losing muscle mass and muscular strength, you're actually going to slowly start to decrease your bone density. And that's why when people get into their 60s and 70s and 80s, they're at a really high risk for osteoporosis. And there's not a whole lot that they can do without maybe injuring themselves, for example, or something like that. So we want to try to set people up for kind of the long run, hopefully to help them avoid disease and avoid osteoporosis and avoid injury and stuff like that. So really trying to get people to plan their breaks accordingly, whether you can get away with just taking a week break or a few days break, or, if you go on vacation, maybe you try to get a couple workouts in, or if you're gone for the summer, maybe you got a lake house or a cabin that you go to a lot, like trying to find some things that you can do to maintain at least your strength and your aerobic cardiovascular health. And obviously also the nutrition is a really, really big part of it. Perhaps more important than the working out itself. If you eat healthy, you can at least avoid all of the health, benefit, or the health risks, I should say. Like if you're eating really, really healthy and just getting a little bit of general exercise, you can typically avoid all of those like heart disease and all those really bad diseases that you're going to be higher risk for.
Yeah, like you still won't get the benefits of the resistance training, but as long as you're having a more on-spot diet, you're getting your fruits and vegetables and you're getting enough protein, you can maintain a decent amount of whatever strength and muscle you gained while you were working out if you do take a year off or something like that. But what kind of happens with that generally is you increase fatigue, which is a big thing. People just start feeling tired, they're not able to do as much. So when you're not working out at all, there's the adage of if you don't use it, you lose it, and that pretty much applies to everything here. If you're not working your heart and your lungs hard in a workout every week, a couple times a week, you're going to lose that function. So, that starts to decrease after 2 to 3 months, and it just progressively gets worse as time goes on. And it's not that you can't reverse it, it's just going to take you longer to get back to where you were relative to where you started. So you could have been farther along had you not taken 2 to 3 months off versus, just maintaining for those 2 to 3 months, doing a couple workouts a week to at least give your body like the using it part so you don't lose it. And one thing about when you hit that 1 year mark with the increased body fat, decreased muscle mass, and increase for chronic disease, it's just going to get worse over time. So getting that year in is really hard when you're trying to come back to the fitness that you were at. It will come back a little bit faster than when you initially started though. That's one caveat, is that if you worked out for say 3 years, 2 years consistently and built up a good foundation, and if you do end up taking 2 to 3 months off and you do end up, gaining some body fat, losing muscle, it tends to go back a little bit faster. It's almost like a muscle memory.
Yes.
Your body remembers, okay, this is what happened last time we were working out and eating right, is our body changed and adapted this way, and it adapts a little bit quicker because it's like the path had already been paved, so it goes a little bit faster the second time. So ideally, you're not going to let that happen, but we all know life happens. Sometimes people fall off track, but you can get back on track or stay on track with just a minimum effective dose. That's what we like to call it, just to maintain where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. That was one thing I was going to mention, was kind of a good thing, if you do take some time off when you come back. For all those people that maybe took a little bit of a break and they come back and they're a little discouraged because they can't do what they used to do, totally understand how that can be very discouraging, upsetting that you're not at the level that you once were at, but you can get there a little bit quicker because you have that muscle memory. It's called neuromuscular strength. A lot of people experience it when they first start working out. You gain a lot of strength without actually gaining a ton of muscle. Basically, your muscles learn to fire correctly and properly in synchronization. So since they've done that repetitively for an extended period of time, if you do take some time off, it's gonna you'll be able to adapt a little bit faster than the first initial time. So that is kind of cool. But we ultimately are doing this video to try to get you guys not to take that time off. It's just the world that we live in. We just have to make sure that we are moving our bodies and providing some resistance, because like she was mentioning, your daily life is just going to get harder and harder, which makes you more stressed out and more tired. That chronic fatigue will start to kind of set in, and that leads to poor sleep. Poor sleep leads to decreased energy. So it's an endless cycle of just going down a rabbit hole and it's very hard to dig yourself back out. We'll have another talk in the future about not waiting until it's too late. We have so many people that go down this rabbit hole until they develop heart disease or until they have a heart attack or develop diabetes, and then they decide to make the change. And we want to try to inspire people to make the change before that happens. You just have to basically come into a realization that if you don't exercise and eat healthy at least 60, 70, 80% of the time, there is a very, very good chance that you will develop a disease of some kind or die an early death or have some kind of limitations when you're older. Maybe you have to use a walker because you're not strong enough. You have to have somebody help you around the house and cook for you and clean for you and things like that. We want to try to help people avoid that. So, developing a plan that you can stick with and you can sustain. There might be changes in volume, like we mentioned. Maybe during the winter you really ramp up your training and you're in here 5 or 6 days a week. And then in the summertime, maybe you can at least get in a couple days. As long as you, like she said, about 1/3 of the volume that you're used to training at, you can actually maintain your results. So that's what we want to see people doing. I like to use the analogy of it's not black or white. You're not either working out all the time and eating really clean or not at all and eating junk. It's a dial from 1 to 10. During the fall and winter, I might turn my dial all the way up to 9 or 10. Might be 100% dialed in all the time. There's not much to do around here in the winter anyways. And then in the summer, I might dial it back to like a 5 or a 6. Enjoy myself on the weekends. I might get a blizzard every weekend. I do that during the summer right now anyways, just as kind of a reward. So you just have to find that balance that works for you, but just don't ever say to yourself, I'm not able to go to the gym, so I might as well not eat healthy. Or I'm not eating healthy, so what's the point in working out? You definitely want to avoid those things.
Yeah, because you can see benefits from either or. Just improving your diet can really help avoid that chronic disease, or just by coming and working out. Even if your diet's not great yet, that's the big thing, is you're going to have to want to change in the future at some point. Even if I'm not where I should be, diet-wise, exercise-wise, just focus on one thing to improve. Because those little steps will add up over time, that 1% better every day that we always talk about. And then when it comes to getting into the gym and working out, you don't have to start with 5 days a week right off the bat, especially when you're getting back to it. So let's say that you started off, you were working out 5 days a week and then you were off for 3 months. You don't have to go right back to the 5 days a week. If you're not working out at all during that time, come back and do 2 or 3 days a week. That way, because your body's just not used to that amount of training. So you're going to be sore, you're going to be tired, you're going to want to just go back to where it was easy and you weren't doing anything. But the issue is that if we don't do it, like we were saying, you're going to have higher risks for diseases. And the #1 cause of death in the United States, probably worldwide, is heart disease. And it's preventable most of the time. I mean, there is some genetic predisposition some people have, but most of the time it becomes an environmentally induced disease. Same thing with type 2 diabetes and a bunch of other chronic diseases that you can avoid through this preventative medicine, we almost like to call it, is with having the correct diet and working out to try and keep your body healthy.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you pointed that out. And if you look up the leading cause of heart disease and type 2 diabetes, it's because of people that are obese or obesity. So high levels of body fat. How do you get high levels of body fat? Lack of exercise and poor nutrition.
Yep.
So poor nutrition and lack of exercise is the leading cause of death, if you think about it.
Yeah.
If you just dig deep into your research. So that's what we want to try to avoid and help you guys with. Getting started, like she said, you don't have to start out with 5 days a week. You could start with 2 or 3. And that's why whenever we start a new client out, we like to meet with them first for a quick consultation, figure out what they've done in the past, how long did they do it, how long has it been since they stopped training, and then we prescribe them a plan, whether they need nutrition and working out or one or the other, we will prescribe them with a plan to get them started and then build them up. I'm really glad that you said you just focus on like one thing at a time. Like you can just focus on your nutrition or just your exercise, and almost 100% of the time you'll start to add in or focus a little bit more attention on all of the other aspects. You know, once you get working out consistently 3 days a week, all of a sudden you start eating better during the week. After you start eating a little bit better, then maybe you start, okay, I'm gonna go to bed a little bit earlier and focus on my sleep. You know, and then you do that for a little while, then you're like, I don't drink enough water. I'm gonna buy a jug of water or make sure I drink, 6 of these every day. So you start adding on all the other healthy habits the longer you stick with it, which is another really important reason to never stop completely, is because the longer you go, the more you learn, the better you get, the more second nature everything comes, and then you can just start to adopt those healthy habits and you don't even know you're doing it. I don't think about having to drink a gallon of water every day, I just do it. I don't think about having to work out every day, it's just a part of my life. So that's what we want to try to get you guys to. So hopefully this helps out. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. If you want to set up a consultation and go over maybe your nutrition you need help with, or working out you need help with, anything. Even if you're a current member here and you've been coming here for 5 years, maybe you've hit a plateau, maybe you need to increase your volume of training or change your nutrition, we'd be happy to talk with you. So hopefully this helps. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Make sure you like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay healthy.